Hello, Madison Avenue. It's good to see you again tonight for our Bible study. Looking forward to getting into a few things tonight in our lesson. We are looking today. We are looking at our lesson in Nehemiah. We're in chapters number 3 and 4, and I'm excited about sharing those with you. This is our 7th lesson in Ezra and Nehemiah, and today we're going to be focusing a lot on rebuilding the walls. And so, rebuilding of the walls is an important step in all of this. And we've already looked in the book of Ezra. We looked at the rebuilding of the altar. We've looked at the rebuilding of the temple itself, and now we've got Nehemiah going to start putting up the walls. And so the walls were a very important part back in those days, part of the defense for the city, and that's what they were going to be doing. They're going to start doing that here in chapter number 3. I'm also going to be trying, so be patient with me, I'm going to be trying to pull up a couple of maps for you and show you a couple of different things on some maps this evening. So we'll see how that works. Hopefully I'm able to pull that off all right for you so you can see those things this evening. But the rebuilding of the walls in chapter number 3, we're not going to read any of the verses in there. I encourage you to go back and reread them for yourself, but there's a lot of names, and even in our outline there's a lot of names that we're not going to be looking at tonight. We're going to be looking at some of the different things that are going on around them, but the names are there in the outline because they are important, but we're not going to be reading through each individual one. So let's get right into it. This evening in chapter number 3, we're looking at the rebuilding of the wall. The entire chapter is dealing with this, and it's dealing with how they rebuilt the wall, who rebuilt it, what sections they were in charge of, and the details actually very amazing to see how much detail that there really was. So chapter number 3 begins with the names of those that rebuilt the north side of the wall. So let's go ahead and you can see my mouse here is what we're talking about, those that are rebuilding the north side of the wall in verses 1 through 6, and these are the names. Now, we're not going to, I'm not going to read all those names to you. I'd probably mispronounce half of them, but again, those are all found in verses 1 through 6. You can go back and you can look at them. And I'm going to go ahead and share this with you right now, and then we're going to look at the map, and we're going to see where this is. In verses 1 through 6, it tells us that the north wall was reconstructed, and this included the sheep gate, the Tower of the 100, the Tower of Hanel, and the Fish Gate, and the Old Gate. And so these are the things that happened and took place. So let me try and get the map pulled up now so that you can see that, and hopefully that will come up here. There we go. Perfect. If you'll notice right here on the top, you'll see this is where we're talking about, this north part of the wall of Nehemiah. And this is on what you and I today in modern day would be the north side of the Temple Mount. And we've got the Sheep Gate, which is where they started. They started the reconstruction process right here in this corner. The high priest and the priests, they got started with this Sheep Gate because it was one of the most important gates to be able to bring the sacrifices in to the temple. And so this is where they started. And from there, they started to go west. And as they headed west, we see that they reconstructed the Tower of the 100. That's where this is right here. Then we have the Tower of Hanel. That's what this is right here. We've got the Fish Gate, which is this little opening here. And we've got the Old Gate, which is over here in the corner. So those first 6 verses are dealing with the rebuilding of this section right here. But a couple other things that you'll notice as we look at a few of these, let's look at some more of our outline here. Well, as we get into the next set of names, this is the next set that rebuilt the northwest portion of the wall, verses 10 through 7. And again, you have the names there that you can find in verses 10 through 7 as well as on our outline sheet. But this northwest wall included the broad wall. Now, there wasn't necessarily any gates here. There wasn't anything special, no special towers, but it was just a very long, wide section of the wall, and that's why they called it the broad wall. And so let me see if I can get that pulled back up for you so that you can see that once again. This is the broad wall. You'll notice how it's a little bit thicker over on that side of the map there. So you'll be able to see a little bit thicker here. And this is the section that they rebuilt all the way down here to the Tower of the Ovens, but we're going to stop there, and we'll pick that back up here in just a moment. But this north west section of the wall was the second section that was being built. So you've got the first section's the northern section. The second section is this northwestern section going from here to here, straight down. You can kind of see my mouse moving there. Hopefully you can see that all right. So we've got that section being built, and that's what we were looking at there in the second set of verses, which was verses 7 through 10. Okay, we've also got the next section of those that built the southwest portion of the wall. So the southwest portion, verses 11 through verse number 14. Again, you have the names there that you can find in the scripture also. The southwest portion of the wall included, included the tower of the furnace, the valley gate, and the dung gate. And this is the section of the wall, if you remember from last week, that the Bible said burned continually, that it was continuing to burn over and over and over again. And so this would have been a very dangerous section of the wall to be working on. But we see there's a group here that is rebuilding this section with these towers. Let me see now if I can get the map pulled back up once more to show you this section. Let's see here. There we go. So that's from the Tower of Ovens, which is right here. The Tower of the Furnace, as the King James says. But it's from this section here all the way down. Now, one thing you'll notice as we get down here towards the end, there's a little bit of a kind of an interior wall here. And so this would have all been taken care of as well. We've got an interior wall and an exterior wall there leading down to the dung gate where all the waste of the city flowed right out. And so this is that section that they were working on in those verses. Those verses, once again, were verses 11 through number 14. So let's look at the next section. The next section we have in this chapter, chapter number 3, are the names of those that rebuilt the southeast side of the wall. So we've got the southwestern side that we just looked at that included the valley gate and the dung gate. But now we're looking at the southeastern side of the wall. On the other side of the city, this is the side that would have run along the Kidron Valley, would have faced the Mount of Olives. And so we've got a wall that is built, being rebuilt there. Now you might notice there's a lot more names mentioned here on this southeast portion of the wall. It takes up 2 lines in our outline paper. And you might say, why in the world did it take so many names? And we're going to look at that here in just a moment. Before we get back to our map, though, let's look at what it included. The southeast portion of the wall included the fountain gate, the stairs descending from the city of David, the water gate, the inner wall, and the tower that lieth out, or also known as the projecting tower. And so there's a lot that went in here. Let's get that pulled up now if I can get it back up, and let's look at it once again, okay? So now we've got this section of the wall. Now this might seem like, distance-wise, might seem like maybe the shortest portion of the wall. And, distance-wise, it very well may have been. But I also want to draw your attention to this, that while it may have been the shortest portion of the wall, it was double-walled the entire way. And so you've got a double wall of protection here. You've got the stairs that descended from the city of David. Those were down here near the dung gate and the pool of Shalom. You've got the fountain gate is also down here. You've got the Davidic tombs, the king's tombs are down in this lower portion of the city of David. We have a couple of towers, great projecting towers that are here. There's a total of 3 of them on this side of the wall, so it's not just one tower, but we've got a total of 3 different towers that are being built on this side of the wall. You've got the older wall that has to be rebuilt. You've got the inner wall that's got to be rebuilt. You have the water gate that's got to be rebuilt. And so there's a lot of work, a lot of gates, a lot of towers, a double wall. Even though it's the shortest portion, it's literally going double all the way up. So you've got to take all of that into account and realize that this was probably the most difficult portion of the wall to rebuild. Not to mention, this is also the side of the wall, like we said a minute ago, that's facing that valley. It's a very steep valley and goes straight down. And so this would have been a very difficult portion of the wall to rebuild. And this is the portion of the wall that took the most men. And so that's why we've got that there on our outline, and that's why the Bible records it that way. We've got several men mentioned, including some of the Levites were involved in this project, as well as some of the Nethinims were involved in this project. So a couple of the things for you to consider in that section, verses 15 through 26. So last section of the wall, is the northeast portion of the wall. This is recorded in verses 27 through 32, the northeast portion of the wall, and these are the names of the men that worked on the northeast portion of the wall. I'll draw your attention to the end of the list. We'll see that the goldsmiths and the merchants all worked on this portion of the wall, and so this was an important part as well. The northeast portion of the wall included the horse gate, the eastern gate, or we might refer to it today in the New Testament refers to it as the golden gate, and the muster gate. So these are the things that were included in the northeast portion of the wall. Let me try and pull the map up for us one more time here so that we can look at that last section of the wall. So this would have been from this projecting tower here back up to the sheep gate. And so you can see the muster gate, the eastern gate, the horse gate, and you can see it's a fairly long portion of the wall, okay? So you've got one section, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections of the wall that are all being put up at the same time. And so you can imagine if you're going to do a large wall like this, putting it up section at a time would be a very quick way to do it. And that's the way that Nehemiah organized it. That's the way Nehemiah put it together. And it was going up very, very quickly. Now, that is the end of our map. We're going to get back into our outline and a couple of things in the scripture. So we just talked about how they're putting up the entire wall in 5 different sections, and these 5 sections are all going up simultaneously at the same time. It's not the same people working on each section. Each section has different people working on it concurrently. And so as this is going up very quickly, that causes a lot of concern for those that are around. It causes a lot of concern for a man that we've seen a few other places in Ezra and Nehemiah. Now we're seeing him once again here in Nehemiah chapter number 4. There's some opposition to this wall that is going up. The man's name is Ballot. Verses 1 through 14 deals with this opposition to the work. And they've been opposing this work since they started rebuilding the altar, since they started rebuilding the temple. Now they're rebuilding the wall, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse for the Samaritans. And so Sanballat is very angry that this is happening, that they're rebuilding the wall, and his anger now is turning to mocking. And he begins to mock the Jews and to mock the city of Jerusalem. And so he's just kind of adding salt to the wound, we might say, and just being very immature about the entire situation. So Sanballat comes before the army there in Samaria, and he asks the army in a roundabout way. This is what he asks. He says, okay, how do you feel about the rebuilding of the wall? I want to pull this up in Scripture real quick and look at this. This is in chapter number 4. And it says, now Tobiah the Amorite, actually this is verse number 2 of chapter 4. And he spake before his brother in the army of Samaria and said, what do these feeble Jews? Will they fortify themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they make an end in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of the rubbish which are burned? And so why is he asking each of these questions? Because each of these questions, what he's saying is, listen, are they going to fortify themselves? If that's all they were doing, we wouldn't have a problem. Are they going to sacrifice? If that's all they were doing, we wouldn't have a problem. Are they going to revive some of the stones that are in the rubble? If that's all they were doing, we wouldn't have a problem. But why is he asking all these questions? Because what he's telling the army of Samaria is, listen, I don't have an issue with this, I don't have an issue with this, I don't have an issue with this. But you put them all together, and they are forming a new nation. And we do have a problem with that. And so he's trying to convince the army of Samaria that we need to go act. We need to take these people out before they get this wall done. It's not just a simple sacrifice. It's not just a simple building. It's not just a simple wall. And so he's trying to convince the city of Samaria to go to war against Jerusalem and to tear it back down. And one of the people that was there was Tobiah the Amorite. And I just find this funny in verse number 3. Tobiah the Amorite was beside him and said, even they that which they build, if a fox would go up, he'll break it down. And so what's Tobiah saying? Tobiah has no he has no concern at all. And that's actually letter E in our outline over here. Tobiah did not seem concerned at all. He said, listen, the walls are small, the walls are weak, a fox could tear them down. There's nothing to be worried about. And so we see Tobiah's trying to kind of calm the situation down, but Sanballat's not having it. He is not happy about the Jews rebuilding these walls. So verse number 4 and 5 record a prayer by Nehemiah. It's a very short prayer, but verses number 4 and 5 say this. Let me read it to you. It says, Hear, O our God, for we are despised, and turn the reproach upon their own heads, and give them for a prey in the land of captivity, and cover not their iniquity, and let not their sin be blotted out from before thee, for they have provoked thee to anger before the builders. And so what's interesting here, Nehemiah is bringing out in his prayer, he's saying, God, yeah, we're mad, but before we're mad, they were provoking you. And so he's reminding God that that these people, of the Samaritans, that it's not just that they're making the Jews upset, but that they're making God upset. And so Nehemiah is praying to God. He goes to God in prayer, reminds God of the sin of Sanballat and the Samaritans. He's asking God for some protection, for some guidance, for some leadership. And of course, God provides all of that. Nehemiah now says in verse number 6, so build we the wall. So we're going to keep on doing what we're doing. In spite of Sanballat's anger and in spite of everything that he's trying to do, they move forward in faith in God. They move forward and continue to do what God's called them to do, and whatever may come, it will come, and they'll prepare themselves for it. So as we continue in chapter number 4, we see that Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabians, the Ammonites, and the Ashdodites, they all now join together, they come together, and they move against Jerusalem. They're going to take Jerusalem out. And naturally, this makes the Jews afraid. They hear about what's happening and what's going on. And so they say, no, we need to do something about this. But Nehemiah says, calm down. God is in control. God's going to take care of this entire situation. And so Nehemiah says, let's just do some things to protect ourselves. First of all, let's set up some 24-hour watches. We're going to have people that are going to watch during the day, and we're going to have other people that are going to watch at night. And there's going to be somebody watching the walls at all times. And he started handing families out some swords, some spears, some bows. He said, we'll protect ourselves and God will protect us. So Nehemiah told him, he said, don't be afraid. God, the Lord, is terrible. He is great. And oh yeah, by the way, he's on our side. And so what an awesome thing to realize that Nehemiah is telling them that God is on their side. This is in towards the end there. It says, and I looked and rose up and said unto the nobles and to the rulers and the rest of the people, be not ye afraid of them. Don't be afraid. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses. And so he says, God's on our side. God's going to take care of us. Fight for your families. Fight for those that you love. And God will provide the victory. Now, starting at verse number 15 through the end of the chapter, verses 15 through 23, just a few points to bring out to you today. As Nehemiah reassures them that God is on their side and God is going to protect them, everyone returns back to work. Everyone says, okay, let's go ahead and get back to work. Let's go start using the hammers and the knives and the things that we need to use to continue to get these walls built. But this time, it is a little bit different. This time, while they're working with one hand, they've got a weapon in the other. And so we see they're working, they're doing what needs to be done, but now they're hindered a little bit because now they've got to be constantly worrying about whether the enemy is coming to destroy them and to take them over. So they're working with one hand and holding their weapon in their other hand. Nehemiah sets up trumpets all the way around the wall, and if anyone heard a trumpet sound, if the trumpet sounded on the north and you were working on the south, you had to go from one side to the other. You had to go and help your brothers, help your neighbors, your friends, your family, help them if they were under attack and under siege. And so these trumpets were set up strategically all the way around the wall, and any time a trumpet was blown, they had to come and help. Now, the people were to stop what they were doing, and they were to go to fight where it was needed. Because of the need to be ready to work and to fight at any time, verse 23 kind of gives us something interesting. Verse number 23 tells us that they did not take their clothes off except to wash them. It says, "So neither I, nor my brethren, nor my servants, nor the men of the guard which followed me, none of us put off our clothes, save that everyone put them off for washing." So you wore them night and day, everywhere that you went, everything you're doing, so that you would be dressed, so that you'd be prepared in case battle came, in case war came. You'd be prepared to fight and do what needed to be done. Now, the very end of that verse I like, says, "Saving that everyone put them off for washing." At some point they were going to need to wash those clothes. At some point it was going to start to get stinky and bad. So obviously Nehemiah said there was a time where we washed them. But other than washing them, they ate in them, they slept in them, they wore them when they were working, they wore them when they were blowing the trumpets and fighting. No matter what they were doing, they stayed dressed and ready, so that no matter what may come, they were ready to go. So this kind of gives us an insight of what they were thinking about there in the city while they were building the walls and trying to protect themselves. That brings us to the end of chapter number 4. I hope that you enjoyed our lesson tonight, just a little over 20 minutes long. I pray that you will be able to read those on your own time. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call, shoot me an email, text message, message on Facebook, wherever you may be watching. I encourage you to ask if you have any questions, okay? I hope that you enjoyed the lesson tonight. God bless you, and we will see you next Wednesday.